Hello everyone and welcome to Flooded Temples. My name is Rob Measures. Today we're going to look at the Temple of Seti I in Abydos, Egypt, to see if we can figure out how the place worked. So if you're new to this channel, which I guess everybody at this point is, then you won't know my basic hypothesis on how most of these temples in Egypt worked, and why they were filled with water. I believe the ancient Egyptians layered too many heavy quartzite blocks for them not to play a pivotal role in the process taking part at these temples. If you look at how quartzite is used in technology today, certain things keep popping up again and again. One is ultrasound waves, and the other is the piezoelectric effect. The first time I heard about the piezoelectric effect was about how it is used in vehicle weigh scales today. When a car drives onto a piece of quartzite, it deforms, and a little electric charge forms across it. If you measure the electric charge, you can tell with a high degree of precision how much the car weighs. The reverse piezoelectric effect is as it sounds. The opposite. When a voltage is put across a quartz crystal, it causes it to deform. An example of this technology today is called an ultrasound transducer, which a nurse puts on mummy's tummy to use ultrasound waves to examine her baby. There are also scaled down versions of this technology, consisting of two transducers working together to stack waves and gently move the blood cells around in human blood in a lab in order to collect them. More about this will be coming in another episode. Finally, an example I've also found that mimics closely what was happening at these Egyptian temples was a study looking into the possible use of this technology in pulping, and looking into the possible use of powerful ultrasonic oscillators in water with pulp to duplicate the pulping process. What I'm going to try and convince you of today is that the temples of Egypt are waveguides, set up similar to a wind instrument. Wind instruments play their music by stacking sound waves, except that instead of wind in Egypt they used water, and their music, when the temple was appropriately tuned, came in the form of cavitating water, used to separate minerals. At this point, one concept that needs to be understood is how waves move longitudinally, and how two longitudinal waves, when combined, interfere with each other. A famous experiment was done using light that proved that light behaves like a wave. It's called the double slit wave interference experiment. It's known that when waves diffract out of two slits the same size, as long as the waves are the same frequency, the two moving waves will combine to behave in a very special way. They will combine to produce what's called a prominent central maximum that emanates out perpendicularly between the two slits. This is what happened when people observed the experiment using light. And this is also how ultrasound waves behave when moving through a pool of water. You'll notice that in Egypt, the obelisks usually come in pairs. And things around them, especially the quartzite blocks, have at some point been repaired with metal clamps. This is because they were the transducers, emitting high-powered ultrasonic waves in the water that had a tendency to break things apart. At this point, you might be wondering what was powering these transducers. But I'm also guessing you know what I'm going to say. Yes, lightning. Now I want to talk about Jeffrey Drum's channel, The Land of Chem. After seeing one of his videos a few months back, my wife found me weeping by my computer while trying to explain how I finally understood the pyramids. Now my guess is that Jeffrey's probably got it about 70% right when it comes to those pyramids, but I don't know much about chemicals. What I do think I know about is electricity and waves, and when Jeff started talking more about sonochemistry and ultrasound waves, I became hooked. Let's get to the Temple of Seti I. Here is a basic map showing the temple from the top. One thing you gotta know first is there's many old clamp marks in the blocks laying around in the first court. Here and here, where it says old wells. These weren't old wells. They were obelisks. Just like every other temple in Egypt, there was a pair of obelisks set up in the center of the building, either in the middle of a court or on either side of the opening of a pylon wall. Usually the obelisks are set up to combine their waves together. Only sometimes was it the opposite, and the waves were directed away from each other, like what's happening with the mixing obelisks at Karnak. More about that in another video. The two obelisks were painted on top with a metal paint called electrum, which when positively charged, attracts lightning. When a lightning bolt hits the obelisk, it breaks over what's called the dielectric breakover point. and conducts electricity down to the quartzite blocks below. When this happens, the quartzite block oscillates in the water at a specific frequency, emitting ultrasonic waves. Let's go back and look at a diagram of a double slit experiment to show you what I'm talking about. Here you can see the wall with the two slits and the light heading towards it. When the light diffracts through the two slits, it becomes a single source again. As long as the slits are the same size and the light waves are the same frequency, you're going to get what's called a prominent central maximum, which is this red line here in the middle. This line, as I said before, shoots out perpendicularly between the two slits in the middle, and is the most powerful of the maximums created. This is where you're going to get your maximum water cavitation. You can also see there are weaker maximums that set up on either side of the prominent central maximum, which, as I'll show you soon, the ancient Egyptians made use of as well. Let's go back to the temple. As you can see here in the first court, as the two obelisks start to produce the waves, they send the prominent central maximum straight down the center of the temple to the second court. But also look down here. The fifth maximum from the central maximum is also allowed to pass through the pylon wall to the second court. Why did they do this? Well, it was so they could set up a second double slit experiment, this time moving the central maximum off-center in the temple and back past the shrine of Osiris. It turns out that if you do a double slit experiment, but instead of the slits being the same size, you have two different size slits, what will happen now is your central maximum won't set up in the middle, it'll offset towards the bigger slit, like you see here. And now we're achieving water cavitation all the way back to the end of the temple. Well, that's it for now, everybody. I want to thank you very much for watching. In the next episode of Flooded Temples, I'm going to take us to another Egyptian temple, the Karnak Temple. And I'm going to show you how it was possible to attract the lightning to these obelisks. Because after all, lightning will most often just strike anywhere. And these temples needed a reliable power source. They couldn't just cross their fingers and hope for the best. Again, thanks for watching and all the best to you.